Carp can officially be dated back to 500 BC in China and certainly goes much, much further back than that. He was imported to Europe from China in and around the 11th or 12th century, and he made it to England and Ireland in and around 1496. They didn't make it to America officially until the U.S. Fish Commission stocked some ponds around Baltimore, Maryland in the year 1877. It's possible that unofficial stockings occurred before this time also. Then, over the next few years, stocking programs spread the carp throughout this country. During these times, sport fishing was practiced only by the very elite. To most, fishing was just a means for food. Commercial fisheries were harvesting at an alarming rate. Combine this with the explosive growth of logging, agriculture, and industry, and our native fisheries and our waters were in big trouble. So the Fish Commission began stocking the carp primarily as a food source. They had high hopes for carp in this country. They could survive just about anywhere, they would eat just about anything, and could provide a significant food source for very little investment and very little effort. Sounds like a good plan, doesn't it? Somehow, it didn't turn out that way. You know that in Japan, the carp is a symbol of strength and courage, much like the eagle in our country. He is the subject of ancient Asian art and decoration. In fact, the multicolored windsock pennants that have become so popular on our continent for outdoor decoration evolved from the Japanese koinobori. They are carp flags of intricate design. In Europe, the carp is highly revered as a sport fish and as a food source. In fact, in many cultures, the carp is viewed as a delicacy. But somehow, that's not the case in America. The carp is viewed as a trash fish, as a bottom feeder. The mere mention of fishing for carp will have people cringing and looking at you in disbelief. They can't imagine how you could even touch a big smelly sucker like that. Well, we're here to tell you that the carp has gotten a really bad rap, and we feel it's time to give him his due. You know, if you really look at a carp, he's a beautiful and an amazing animal. Yes, it's true, he'll eat just about anything, but that's one of the things that makes him great. And no, he's not just a bottom feeder. We'll show you that here in this tape. I think that a carp is simply one of the most exciting and challenging freshwater game fish that there is, and I think you're going to find a lot of fly fishers who agree. Dave Whitlock is one of the true pioneers in the sport of fly fishing. He is well known for his expertise in fishing for bass and other warm water fishes, and in recent years he's added carp to that list. He's been promoting and educating folks on carp fishing in his travels and has already done a lot for carping in this country. Carp just really don't get the respect that really they deserve, especially from the fly fishing community, and boy, I know both of us like to see that changed, and what a great opportunity for fly fishers.
Yeah, we've probably got some of the best carp fish in the world here in North America, and usually though a person almost have to like come out of the closet, declare themselves a carp fisherman. I guess you and I are at that stage now where we talk about it in public now.
We're officially out of the closet.
But I started carp fishing when I was a kid, you know, with bait, but also occasionally with flies, or I'd catch them when I was bluegill fishing. And I always noticed one thing: they were always bigger than anything else I ever caught. They always pulled harder, and you know, it was always a highlight of the day to catch them. And yet, you know, for a lot of years, because really nobody else kind of thought that way. I just kind of kept it to myself. But you know, like I was telling you, when we're fishing the North, or below North Dam, that the trout fishing was lousy, and I found these big carp, and it was a great day fishing because of it.
Yeah, well, we still put on classes and clinics and what have you, and have really tried to promote carp fishing, and I still get people that look at us funny, and they literally think that we're joking about this.
Well, it's hard to break that image that people have of carp. You know, we had some students here yesterday, and one of the guys got a 4 or 5 pound carp. It's just a gorgeous big golden thing, and his eyes got that big ring. He said, you know, I had no idea that it was like this. You know, I mean, he almost had to put them, baptize them with a carp.
Yeah. Well, you wrote an article recently that I was really fond of. It talked about the carp, the fish of the new millennium. You talked about crossing a bunch of different species of fish and just coming up with the perfect fish for fly fishing for the new millennium.
Yeah, well, you know, the approach I made, because I was trying, again, to kind of open people's mind up, is that if you had a perfect fish to fish for the next 100 years, you know, taking into consideration of what we're doing to the environment and how we're sometimes over harvesting our fish and stuff, what would it be? And you know, and first of all, that I think all of us love a bonefish and love a trout and love a redfish and that sort of thing. So like cross a bonefish with a redfish, first of all, to get a neat cross of a fish that'll feed on different kinds of flats and in different water temperatures, because bonefish or tropical redfish, or you know, they'll take colder water, and then turn around and cross that with a really pretty deep golden colored cutthroat trout or a brown trout, to get that really pretty yellows and reds and golds on them. And then the last cross you'd have to do, though, you know, to fish for the next 100 years or so, would be to cross it with a stainless steel fish to make it, you know, corrosion resistant, poison resistant, heat resistant, and all that sort of thing. But if you did all those crosses, you'd have a fish that would be identical to a carp, because they can resist pollution, they reproduce great, they fight long, hard battles, they're very, very smart, and that they're just a superb super fish. And we've had them around for the last 100 years or so, because they stocked them in 1830 in this country, and they were immediate success to the Asians and the Europeans for cultural things as well as food. But because a lot of folks began enamored about catching bass and trout and keep them to eat, the carp that were stocked in the safe waters lost their natural enemies, and so they began to overpopulate some. And so they began to get a bad name. But it was not the carp's fault, it was them. Because you take these lakes right here, you know, what do we see? We go down a bank and we see 3 or 4 carp every 100 yards, and they're all nice big fish.
Right.
And that's because that, as you told me, that the bluegill and the bass and the predator system here are on catch and release.
Yes.
And so that when you have those kind of regulations where you're not over harvesting your predator fish, they harvest the carp. You don't have to worry about it. And it also makes the carp, gives them less competition, and so they're bigger.
Yeah.
We got 3 big carp today.
Yeah.
You know, and about 3 or 4 hours of pulling along the banks and fishing. And if we had to catch 3 or 4 fish that size on the flats and fight that hard on the Fry Tiger, we would have had to have flown 1,500 miles from here and spent about $3,000 a piece to hire some guides and what have you, to have that same quality of fishing.
Yep. Hey Dave, what are you doing catching them junk fish?
I never thought I'd see the day when I thought that I was disappointed catching bass. I'm out here catching carp.
That's what you get when you're
It is a little bit of a letdown.
when you're a carp addict.
Not quite the rush.
As we stated earlier, the carp is really an amazing animal. He's got some unique features and a really neat design that help make him a great game fish. Understanding some of these features can help you catch more fish. First of all, it's important to understand the different types of carp that you'll be fishing for. The common carp is the one that you'll most encounter. They are a member of the minnow family, and they are the fish that we refer to throughout this video. They are found, oddly enough, in the fully scaled common version, the partially scaled mirror carp, and the scale-less leather carp. Grass carp really fall into their own category, and we will discuss them later in the tape. They are found less often, but are still great quarry on a fly rod. A carp uses all of his senses in order to survive and therefore to feed. Obviously, he uses his sense of sight to a great degree, but also uses his sense of hearing, smell, and taste. Understanding how a carp uses these senses can really help you catch more fish. Obviously, it's very important for a carp to see the fly, and a carp definitely looks for his food. In fact, scientists have determined that many members of the minnow family can see colors extremely well. Anyone who fishes for carp can tell you that they definitely have a color preference, usually for more subdued colors, indicating good vision. I think the most important thing to understand about a carp is his heightened sense of hearing. Like other fish, he has an ear and a lateral line which helps him locate prey and respond to other fish, amongst other things. But a carp also has what's called a Weberian apparatus. This is a series of bones and ligaments that connects the swim bladder to the inner ear, essentially turning the swim bladder into a resonator or an amplifier, thus giving the carp a heightened sense of awareness of everything going on around him. Jim Andrix is one of the most educated anglers that we know. His understanding of carp biology makes him a master carp angler.
On this trailing edge of the front dorsal, there's like barbs. They're not real sharp, like sawtooth, but they're dull. Other than that, that's the only spiny part of the dorsal fin there is. All the rest of the fins are soft. Here on the barbules, on their mouth, are feelers, real sensitive. So on muddy water, they don't see, but they can sense the bottom and what's there. And right at this top barbule, there's an intake. That's what I call an intake. Water will flow through that and out the top, and that's how they smell.
The carp also uses his sense of smell and taste when feeding. Actually, his entire body is covered with taste buds, so the barbules that help him feel the bottom actually help him taste the bottom as well. A carp also has pharyngeal teeth, in other words, teeth in his throat. This often makes him appear to be chewing his food, but these pharyngeal teeth help him to crush crustaceans, snails, and other cased organisms. I think that a carp's unique mouth really makes him neat. It's situated to make him an extremely efficient bottom grubber, but also allows him to feed on bait fish as well as eat insects, terrestrials, and more off the surface. Bottom line is, in order to catch carp, you're going to have to find feeding carp. In your carping career, you're definitely going to encounter a lot of carp that just seem to be hanging around. A lot of times they'll lay just below the surface, just kind of lounging or slowly moving along.